USA podcast. This is Ron Costa broadcasting live in the Mapable USA studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. And folks, we have a really great show for you today. Again, we're talking crowdfunding. And of course, as we talk crowdfunding, we have to bring in Ron Sukenik from Simply Go Public. Ron, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. You know, being here in the Midwest, unlike you in Las Vegas, we're still trying to wind up, if you will, from the cold weather. But always a treat to be with you, Ron. And I'll tell you today, I am thrilled. I'm going to introduce Jeff Fuzzy Wenzel from Woodshed Agency. But, you know, everybody, out of all the shows we've done together or you've done on your own, everybody's always interested in driving the crowd. Everybody's always interested in how do I make the most from social media. And I don't think it's going to get any better than today with Jeff. So would you like me to go ahead and introduce Jeff, and should we just jump into this?
Oh, absolutely. Let's go at it. Yeah, this is going to be a great show. We've got a great guest.
Yeah. By the way, Jeff Fuzzy Wenzel, right? That's what he says on his own, is the co-owner and CEO of the Woodshed Agency. So who are they? What do they do? They're social media and public relations expert. And what I love about them is they have a lot of experience. They've planned and executed over 300 successful crowdfunding campaigns for independent creators, businesses, not-for-profits, and they understand how to build the crowd. And as you and I know, Ron, you got to build the crowd before you can build the funding. By the way, Jeff is, as I say, is a co-owner, but he's a crowdfunding social media expert, project manager, business developer, and in his professional career builds out over 10 years of executive-level management, marketing, business analysis, and investing. Jeff, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you, boys, for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. And I'll tell you that the biggest well, by the way, I know I made a quick intro for Woodshed Agency, but share with everybody exactly what you're doing and what got you into this whole crowdfunding space.
Sure. I mean, so the way we kind of describe it is we really are helping startups kind of navigate the funding world, and crowdfunding is one of our tools in our toolbox. It's the one we probably bring out the most. But, so there's certain businesses that crowdfunding works for. There's certain businesses that are better for equity crowdfunding. There's some businesses better for maybe just fundraising on their own website. So we really try to kind of help a company make the right decision so that they're not, shooting themselves in the foot or being a square peg in a round hole, being on the wrong platform. We see that quite a bit where, sometimes we'll get like an app company that'll come to us and, they're running a Kickstarter campaign and there's very few apps that get funded on Kickstarter. So we try to pivot them over to the right platform. So it's really sort of hand-holding them through all of these sort of various, platforms that are out there, the best practices, and just making sure that they're always making the right steps because they don't have tons of cash flow to make mistakes. So, every single decision we make, they're crucial decisions. We typically don't have the budget that we can just, we ran the wrong types of Facebook ads. Well, we'll get them next time. That type of decisions can really ruin a brand. So really for us, it's just managing and maintaining and making sure that, we're putting everybody in the best places for success.
Jeff, I think one of the biggest mistakes that I think a lot of these people, these entrepreneurs are doing is they think they can end up on a platform and that people will see, look, we know that there are platforms for equity or certainly reward funding, but they have and there's, maybe 100,000 people on the platform, but they always think that that's all it's going to take. I list my venture on this platform and people will show up. And that's so far from the truth. What do you typically tell these entrepreneurs that they need to understand in that space to be able to drive the crowd?
Well, really, right now for us, it's twofold. The first thing is that we've sort of doubled down on our relationships with some of the equity players in particular. And what we've seen now after, this May will be 3 years of equity, the platforms are not doing a very good job of educating the potential customers or the potential businesses as to what needs to go into these campaigns. So they're almost setting this sort of precedent to the businesses, like we've got all these investors. These investors will obviously be into you. And the investors are getting a little tapped out right now. There's a lot of projects. On the reward-based side, projects like Kickstarter or Indiegogo are sort of suffering because the platforms have matured so far that you've got to be a pretty well-established business to get something funded on there. If you have no ad budget, you are out of luck. So and that's something that like a Kickstarter or Indiegogo does not tell somebody who is getting ready to run a campaign, because it shows a weakness in their platform. Nobody wants to be beholden to somebody else. So if Kickstarter were to all of a sudden say, hey, listen, if you don't spend $10,000 in Facebook ads, you won't fund on this, it really doesn't shine a very good light on Kickstarter. But that's the harsh truth right now. So now when I'm getting these businesses that are coming into me, I have to tell them that you just have to be a lot more mature than you truly think that you have to be. These platforms are not places for just ideas. They're places for prototypes, or you're on your 5th prototype and you just gotta just get over this little hump. That's where you need to be. And then on top of that, you need to have an audience built. You need to have social media going. You need to have your basically your brand put together a little bit so that you're out there telling a good story. The days of just, hey, I have an idea for a thing, they're just long gone. That's 5 or 6 years ago now. So the platforms are matured. Your business has to be mature, and that's when you're going to hit success. And that's really where you see the big numbers on these platforms.
Oh, that's right on. Ron, we hear this all the time, Ron, don't we? I mean, people don't
more than we want to. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there who are a little bit delusional as far as what they think they can raise and how easy it is to do that. So, Jeff, I think you're absolutely right about what you just said. I mean, that's we've seen it over and over and over again. But what's interesting about that too is that these platforms, it's just like they're almost like placeholders right now. Okay, I'm going to go there and that's where I'll make my investment. But somehow you have to know about it. So, and you mentioned earlier in the podcast that a lot of your clients are startups. So these startup guys, do you help build their crowd from scratch? Like they have nobody following them, or other than their friends and families, I guess. But to get that let's say that Facebook page to 10,000 followers and get them all engaged and active, that's a hard job to do. And it's not cheap, right?
Yeah. So 100%. So the majority of our clients come to us with almost nothing, meaning that hey, I have a prototype. I built this thing in my garage, type of vibe, I went to China a couple times. I got this thing. I got this widget, and that's cool. And then I tell them, well, you got to give me about 6 to 8 months to build an audience. And they go, what are you talking about? Everybody's going to want my thing. And it's just like that's just not how any of this works. So then I have to go in and start building this crowd. So for us as an agency, we spent a lot of last year in limbo, courtesy of the Facebook algorithms and the Facebook news. The constant news cycles of Facebook last year. And it was an up and down for our business, frankly. I mean, it's hard to, plan a little bit if Facebook changes an algorithm or how, they changed the way Facebook ads work. So we actually developed, for the last quarter of last year, we spent a ton of time in trying to figure out new growth hacks so that I can build audiences still using Facebook, but without spending so much money on Facebook ads. And that's really that's like our biggest focus. I mean, actually currently right now, I was a couple minutes late because I'm literally scraping data right now from social media platforms, because I'm trying to find ways to not be so beholden to the Facebook behemoth monster. And so now you start getting into guerrilla marketing, and you're getting into trying to use competitors' data and seeing what's working on their posts and how can you emulate that so that this time window isn't so long for a lot of these clients, because I know 8 months or 6 months is a long time for a client to build an audience, but so we've got to continue to find ways to just not have to give money to Facebook, because it's just not good for business.
No, it's not. And these days too, you have your alternative platforms like Twitter and YouTube and a whole bunch of other ones too. So I'm sure there's a mixture involved. And like you said before, there is something may work for one client that may not work for another.
Yeah, but here's the dirty secret behind the scenes is that Twitter equals nothing for us. We stopped focusing on it 2 years ago. It's a political junkyard of bots. So and maybe they clean up the platform and it comes back. If I looked at my dashboard from my 2010 campaigns, Twitter was our number one referral. All our money came from Twitter, frankly. And it was just and that's when the platform had its most value. And now that's literally gone. So we don't even focus on it for clients. Then you come over to Instagram, and Instagram is amazing for awareness, but it very rarely equals backers. And, very few investors are hanging out on Instagram waiting to invest because they saw a cute photo of a thing. It's just so that's not really the right world. YouTube is interesting, but then you can't run Google ads for anything crowdfunding. So you're right back to it's Facebook ads or bust. We dabble a lot in Reddit right now, so we try to find subreddits that we go into. We'll do Quora. We'll go in and try to answer very niche questions to try to drive traffic. We do a lot in automation on Medium in terms of trying to write blog content there and trying to find audiences there. So yeah, it's but still at the end of the day, when I look at my dashboards, it's Facebook ads and affiliated marketing here and there. If I can do using a tool like Kickbooster or something where I'm giving 10% of every sale, those are the things that are driving actual conversions. So.
How realistic is it to think? Okay, I was going to say, how realistic is it to think that organic traffic can help you in your fundraising efforts from, let's say, search engines, a Google search, or something like that?
We just don't have it's just a time factor. So if you gave me a couple years to really build out a great SEO project or a great SEO campaign and really good blog writing and then at that point too, the project creator is really really good at writing blogs with great keywords, and it's just not going to happen. So now it goes back to I've got to, and also it's good for a lot of these clients to be a little quick, right? Let's prove validity. If I run some Facebook ads and it comes back at $6 a lead, you have a major problem on your hands. It's just not going to work. But if I run Facebook ads and it comes back at 40 cents a lead, hey, we've got something here. Clearly an audience is into what you're working on. So, and then at that point, once I'm building an audience, then I'm doing drip emails and, then I'm being really crafty with how I, tell the story and that sort of stuff and what video assets we're using. But the other sort of major component is it's project creators themselves. So everything I'm talking about is me, being the wizard behind the screen and I'm doing this weird thing and I'm doing this hack or I'm putting an emoji here and, but at the end of the day, the project creator has to truly champion what they're working on. And if I look back at all of our campaigns that failed, it's all leadership issues. It's not, the Facebook ads I ran weren't as amazing as the other client. It's the leader wasn't out championing his product. He wasn't in Facebook groups having conversations. He wasn't doing Facebook Lives every day. He wasn't on a panel speaking about, whatever his niche thing is that he's an expert on. He's not actually out having conversations. He's sort of, I hired an agency. They're going to do it. And, crowdfunding people see through that stuff. And, project creators have to really own and love what they're working on, even if they're side hustle. You still got to own that stuff and be talking about it day in and day out, every single day, about how excited you are about it, because that's really what fuels people's excitement is to see, a project creator excited about it, not a marketing guy who's clever with Facebook ads. That's gravy. That's not the substance. So.
Jeff, let me ask you this. Let's talk a little bit about the expectation and what the project creator or entrepreneur needs to have in place. So if they're budgeting from a marketing standpoint to build an audience or to engage their audience and to convert that audience, what kind of money are they thinking of? And I know it depends potentially on how much they're going to raise, but
sure.
But give us some ideas. Give us some ideas of some money, and then and what the expectation is for every dollar they put up. What's the expectation back from a crowdfunding?
Sure. So our sort of general numbers that we're looking for is around between 10 to 15% of whatever you want to raise is probably spent in ad dollars, Facebook, so on and so forth. That sort of formula has usually always hit for us. Because what happens is that we also have some, we have some spreadsheet formulas that we put together too, where if I take your cost per unit, if I take your open rates from your emails, whatever your consistency is, if it's 18%, 22%, the average conversion rate across the board for all crowdfunding is about 1%. So if I have, if you tell me I want to raise $100,000, that means I probably have to have 250,000 clicks to the Kickstarter page, or and then from there at 1%, and then depending on what your price per unit is, now you start looking at like, well, my cost per clicks are 3 cents. I got to send 250,000 clicks to the Kickstarter page. You can start doing some rough math to at least get you in the ballpark of what's going to need to be spent. And that's on top of if you're working with an agency or if and then we have to look at what your rewards cost. So a lot of documentaries we have to be very cautious with because, there's no tangible thing. So they start making T-shirts and buttons and hats, and now they become a merch store. Well, now if you're a merch store, you have costs associated with all of these rewards you have to make. So now we have to look at like, well, you don't actually need $100,000. You need maybe $130,000 because you got $30,000 in merch to actually get to $100,000. So we have to. It's a lot of math in a nutshell is what we're doing here. But give or take, I usually tell everybody between 10 to 15% should be spent on advertising before you launch a campaign.
So let's take a best scenario for you. So I'm thinking, Jeff, that you speak to people, you consult with people, they can talk with you, they can tell you what they want to do, and you'll either be able to take them on or not. So what's a good client for you? What's a sweet spot? What kind of people do you look for that you can help if you had a chance to speak with them?
So the biggest one is, and this has taken us a little bit of time to learn, is it really does need to be a pretty special product, and not it is very easy to find something on Alibaba, order it, try to run a Kickstarter campaign, put your branding on it, and just go, oh, look at this thing, everybody's going to want this weird salad tosser thing or something. It's just like, that's just not that important of a thing. If that product, if you really look at it and go, this really does service a need. I can plug this into my iPad, or a wearable that like, wow, there's a great component here. This would make my life better. That really is becoming more and more like that is step one. And that's a challenging thing, just that alone, right? Like a great product or a great story is step one. After that, it comes down to what I mentioned earlier, a project creator who actually cares. And I'm always blown away by saying this, but like the amount of project creators that we get that have a great product, but they're not working on it, it's shocking to us, because you really got to be out championing your message day in and day out about what you're working on. And then third from that is, they actually do have some budgets in place, to pull this off. And then right after that, it's a sort of openness to actually working with an agency. A lot of times what we've found is that, they're one-man bands. They've been building their trinket in their garage for 4 or 5 years. Now they're working with a team of 13 who's pushing them and saying, that's not how we do Facebook ads. And then they come back and they're like, yeah, but I would never want to email that, that many people. I think people are going to get real nervous about it. So now they're not trusting the process. And now you start going, well, why am I here? So, so it's like that project creator has to be open to techniques and changes. And then also, because it is a bit of a partnership, you can't basically, Facebook is constantly changing, right? Algorithms are changing. So a guy like me, I am on the cusp, but there's sometimes that, man, I ran some ads, they just didn't hit. I'm sorry, I spent $200. You can't get down on that because the next day I could run an ad and, I could spend $200 and we make 20 grand. It's that sort of balance that's very, very challenging to get. So those are sort of my like four, maybe 4A of things that we look for that really is our sweet spot when it comes to a project.
Yeah, good information, Ron. I mean, and it confuses me a little bit, Jeff, because somehow you got the name Fuzzy as a nickname somehow, but you seem so focused. You don't seem so fuzzy. Now how did that happen? Yeah. Where's the fuzzy come in?
So that comes from the old rock and roll days. Out touring, I used to have a big, beautiful mohawk with feathers in it, like a Alaskan Mohican style. And then I had children, and all my hair fell out. But people just kept saying that like it just there is a fuzzy feeling when I'm in the room. So I don't know, it just kind of stuck, and you got to do whatever you can to stick out. So
we'll have to use that picture on your bio. I would like to see that.
Yeah, just a lot of great info, and you sound so. Again, you sound so focused and clearly understanding the concept of what works and what doesn't work. So if people hear this podcast, which I'm sure they will because there's thousands of downloads, and somebody wants to speak to you, how do they reach the Woodshed Agency? How do they get to Jeff?
Yeah, actually, it's quite simple. You just go to our website, and then there is a consultation at the top, and I basically give anybody 20 minutes. You pick a time in my calendar, and I show up, and we talk for 20 minutes. You pick my brain, and I will almost guarantee you I've either seen what your product is or I can point you in the right direction. There's really nothing that's come across our desk that we've never seen before. And I can at least point you in the right direction, right platform, and just kind of put in your head in the right mindset. So we're actually we try to be as wide open as possible because we know how difficult this niche is to crack. We try to give as much information as possible. So if you go literally woodshed.agency, that's the website, consultation, and that my calendar literally pops up, and you pick a time, and you get my cell phone number, and we go from there.
Yeah, I want to make sure people understand that. That's Woodshed, WOODSHED.agency.
Yep.
And you'll get to Jeff Fuzzy Wenzel. Jeff, as we get ready to close, and I know Ron always has a great ending as well, what's the biggest piece of advice you're going to give anybody? And again, there's so much I'm sure you can say, but what's the number one thing that any of these, what you call project creators or entrepreneurs, or what would you tell them?
So it's probably going to come down to focus on a great product and then have the patience to actually build that audience so that great product can actually truly be seen by somebody. And there really isn't a rush job. As much as everybody has their own imaginary timelines, that this has to happen by March 5th or something, or whatever date they have in their mind, you've really got to look at it, trust the data, have a great product, and that's when these platforms shine. So that's usually my general advice there.
And it's safe to say, Jeff, that if they don't have the patience, they can hire you, and you have the patience and the knowledge and the know-how.
Well, yes, we are classic pump the breakers over here because we're constantly being like, and it's not even us, it's not feelings. We are all about data. So I'm looking at stats and data and formulas that says when you're ready to launch. It's not up to me. It's up to if your cost per unit is $100 and you only have 30 people on a waiting list. Well, 30 people times 100 is, that's not very much money. If your goal is $100,000, and that way it gets out of that sort of emotional, and it's just look at the data. So, that's what we're trying to always get to is what the numbers are, man. And that sort of diffuses that. So.
I hear you. Hey, Ron Costa, host of Mapable USA. My God, another good show. Do you have any closing comments for?
Yes, I do actually, because I think if you're an issuer or if you're a business owner or you're looking to crowdfund in any way, you want to crowdfund your product, you should be listening to this podcast over and over again, not just the Mapable USA podcast, this particular episode, because Jeff hit on something that's so important that nobody gets, it seems like, and that is you have to champion your cause. You have to be out there. You have to be an evangelist for your project. You can't sit back and let the investors and let everybody come to you. That is such a key point there. It's so obvious, too. And yet, Jeff, how many times do people come to you and like, okay, all we need to do is make a viral video, and we're ready to go. It's like, it's not that simple.
It's the biggest friction point in our agency is that and we're always working on this. There's something that happens in the psyche of, I hired an agency, they're going to do it. And I cannot champion your message. I can't.
Exactly.
I didn't build your widget. I'm here to support your widget. So that is just frankly, it's flat out. It's our number one friction point as an agency. Is people just sort of take the foot off the gas and go, I hired you.
Yep. If you take anything from this website, from this podcast, folks, that's the takeaway from this. Get involved in your own project and make sure you're out there pitching a deal and staying excited about it. That's the key to this whole thing right now.
Yep. Yeah, and I'll give one more. I'll throw on that too. Is to not be afraid of social media. a lot of project creators call us and they're just completely afraid of it. And they're, or they come from such a corporate setting that they're like, all right, I'm going to make a Facebook Live, but I want to make sure we write out a big script for it. And I want it to be very, very put together. What should I wear? And I'm just like, it's a Facebook Live on a Tuesday, man. Like, just do it. And if you can't talk about your project as clearly as I can just get on a call with you guys and just talk about crowdfunding, then you've got an issue. You've got to be able to bebop and scat, talk about your stuff, pull out examples. I mean, that's a project creator. That's an entrepreneur. That's an energy. That's a spirit. And that stuff comes across on your videos, your social media posts, your Facebook Live. If you come across with like, I just can't talk about my thing. What? You got to talk about it. You just have to. So you can't be afraid of these things, and, just get on Facebook and start posting. Get on Instagram, start posting. Post on Twitter. Just do it, And if it's wrong, you hit delete. You move on in your day. So.
Well, thanks so much, Jeff, for coming aboard. And Ron, I know you always have some nice closing comments. You want to make sure everybody understands that you're in a very warm, nurtured area out there in Las Vegas.
Listen, yeah, absolutely. Vegas life is great. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. It's really, really nice. So anyway, Ron Sukenik from Simply Go Public, thanks for hosting or co-hosting the site with me today, this podcast. And, of course, Jeff, thanks so much for being a guest on the show. It was really informative. Really appreciate the time that you took today.
No problem.
And everyone out there, you're listening to the MapableUSA.com podcast. Find us at that website. You can scroll down on that homepage. You'll see a whole list of where we're syndicated. Click the one you like best and subscribe so you don't miss any episodes like the one we're bringing you today. If you want to be a guest on the show today like Jeff was, there's a guest tab at the top of the website. Just click on that, fill it out, and we'll see about getting you on the show. So once again, thank you all for listening. Thanks for being part of the show, and we'll come at you next week with another Mapable USA episode. Have a great week.